Only one specific category of human being outlasts a narcissist, and it is never the individual you might assume. The traditionally powerful often crumble while attempting to combat them. Those possessing flawless boundaries simply depart before the profound transformation can take place. Jung suggested that the unconscious makes its selection long before the conscious intellect can grasp the reasoning. A narcissist does not form attachments by accident. They calibrate themselves to a specific nervous system, a particular history of resilience that aligns with their dysfunction, much like a key sliding into a lock. But here is the detail no one discloses. The survivor isn't the most poised or the most introspective. The survivor is the solitary one holding an alchemical talent to transform the narcissist's venom into their own individual strength. This video explains why you were designated not as a casualty, but as a candidate for a harrowing transformation. Remain until the conclusion, because the specific trait that lured them in is the precise instrument that will eventually dismantle their influence. You were designated by the narcissist because your formative years taught you to tolerate what others would instantly dismiss. The narcissist does not select a companion based on affection or genuine rapport. They choose based on practicality. They are hunting for a specific utility. When they evaluate a room or navigate a digital platform, they are not searching for the most radiant or the wealthiest individual. They are searching for the person with the highest capacity for emotional labor. They are searching for you. But why you? What did you project that sent the signal for them to move in? You broadcast the subtle, involuntary signs of someone harboring old, unaddressed scars. Specifically, you manifested the scars of the protector. Carl Jung noted that the unconscious mind externalizes itself into the world through our daily conduct. You might believe you are simply being compassionate, attentive, or a dedicated listener, but to a narcissist, your conduct signals something more fundamental. It signals that you are hardwired to prioritize the requirements of others over your own sense of reality. This conditioning typically originates in childhood. If you were raised in a setting where the guardians were emotionally stunted, volatile, or distant, you had to adapt. You realized that to remain safe, you had to be useful. You learned to interpret the atmosphere. You learned to monitor the expressions of your parents to gauge if they were hostile or despondent. And you modified your presence to regulate their internal states. If they were aggressive, you became quiet. If they were miserable, you became the counselor. This is a survival tactic known as fawning. It is the capacity to override your own defensive instincts and instead become accommodating and helpful to the source of the threat. You learn that the only way to navigate chaos was to absorb it and neutralize it. Imagine a child witnessing their mother venting frustration in the household. Their sibling flees, but this child moves toward her, offering assistance, making jokes, trying to repair the atmosphere. At 8 years old, they already grasped that pacifying someone else was the only route to security. Decades later, the narcissist identifies that same reflex in you immediately. This scar always reveals itself later in life, often during moments that appear trivial. You are on an initial date. The server makes an error with the order. The person you are with directs a biting, slightly hostile remark toward the staff. A person with no history of trauma would feel immediate discomfort. They would view this hostility as a significant warning sign. They might even remark that it was unnecessary, or they might decide right then that there will not be a follow-up date. They categorize the behavior as unacceptable. But you do not categorize it. You try to rationalize it. Your intellect immediately begins constructing justifications for them. You think perhaps they had an exhausting day at work. Perhaps they are just meticulous about their meal. I should help them unwind. You smile, you pivot the conversation, and you try to dissolve the tension. You accept the emotional weight of their poor behavior onto your own shoulders. The narcissist observes this reaction, and in that instant, they know they have secured their target. They see that you did not demand accountability. Instead, you tried to repair the situation. They realize that you are a person who will strive to earn their validation even when they do not deserve it. They see a companion who is habituated to walking on eggshells. This is why they designated you. They require a vessel. The narcissist carries a massive burden of internal shame and disorder, but they refuse to experience it. They need a partner who will experience it for them. They need someone who will fret when they are gone, who will weep when they are cold, and who will attempt to fix their disasters. They need you to carry their shadow. You were selected because you are a specialist in endurance. You have an incredible talent for tolerating discomfort. You can go weeks without having your requirements recognized, and you will still remain. You can be insulted, and you will still attempt to bridge the gap. You can be ignored, and you will still try to find a link. To the narcissist, this does not look like love. It looks like a resource. What they never grasped is that the same scar that made you easy to exploit is the scar that eventually makes you impossible to destroy. Your stamina wasn't a flaw, it was armor masquerading as devotion. They chose you because of your wound, but you outlast them because of your underlying power. Here is the part that is painful but must be recognized. Your empathy, your warmth, and your patience were converted into weapons. These are noble characteristics, but without limits, they become dangerous. The narcissist did not fall in love with your essence. They fell in love with your trauma reflex. They saw a person who would never quit no matter how toxic it became, because that person believes that love is synonymous with suffering. But identifying this is the primary step to shattering the cycle. This isn't a badge of merit. It's an indication that you are recreating a struggle that started long before them. You are attempting to rescue them in the way you wished you could have rescued your guardians. You are trying to be good enough to finally be cherished. The narcissist depends on you remaining oblivious. They want you to think you're simply a compassionate person, but you're not just compassionate. You were trained to put others first even when it damages you, and training can be dismantled. This is why only one category of person outlasts them. Not the most powerful, but the one who is conditioned to carry what would have destroyed anyone else. If you felt something in you shift while hearing this, some buried truth rising to the light, join this journey now. Become part of a community rooted in insight, awareness, and the kind of evolution that actually remains. In the following section, you'll see the next reason survivors stay, the hidden biological magnet that makes danger feel strangely recognizable. That love is something you have to struggle for. You learn that it arrives with high anxiety. You learn that intimacy is always followed by abandonment. So when you meet a narcissist and they initiate the cycle of excessive attention, followed by subtle withdrawal, your body reacts. It recognizes the pattern. It says, I understand this dynamic. I know how to navigate this. The tension you feel in your core, the butterflies, the agitation is not excitement, it is fear. But because you have confused fear with passion for so long, you gravitate toward it instead of fleeing. It always starts quietly, almost imperceptibly. You're dating someone new for 3 weeks. They message you every morning. They tell you that you are the most incredible person they have ever encountered. You feel a high. Your brain is saturated with dopamine. Then suddenly on a Tuesday, they don't message. You wait. You send a note. They respond 6 hours later with a single word. A person with a healthy attachment style would observe this and think, that's dismissive. Or they seem erratic. I'm losing interest. They would feel repelled by the coldness. But you don't feel repelled. You feel activated. Your heart begins racing. You check your device every few minutes. You review old messages to see if you said something incorrect. You start performing. You try to be more humorous, more lighthearted, more captivating to win them back. The withdrawal of their warmth triggers a survival impulse in you. You are pursuing the dopamine surge. You are pursuing the relief of them returning to you. The narcissist instinctively understands this. They operate on a reward schedule that fluctuates, what behavioral science calls intermittent reinforcement. This is the most addictive form of conditioning known to researchers. It is the same logic that makes gambling addictive. If a slot machine provided a payout every time you pulled the handle, you would eventually get bored. If it never provided a payout, you would walk away. But if it provides a payout sometimes unpredictably, you will sit there until you have lost everything. The narcissist is the slot machine. They give you moments of intense validation, the win, followed by periods of coldness or mistreatment, the loss. You stay because you are always anticipating the next win. You convince yourself that the benevolent version of them is the genuine version, and the cruel version is just an anomaly. You tell yourself, if I can just be patient enough, the person from the start will reappear. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat. It is the unconscious impulse to return to the origin of our initial trauma in an effort to repair it. You are projecting your childhood requirements onto the narcissist. You are hoping that this time the emotionally distant person will finally become available. This time you will be worthy enough to make them stay. You are not just in a bond with a person. You are in a bond with your own history. This is why you feel like you cannot depart even when you know they are deceiving you. Your logical mind recognizes the truth, but your emotional brain is caught in a loop. You are chemically hooked on the cycle of stress and relief. The tranquility of a healthy bond feels uninteresting to you because it lacks this chemical peak. You mistake the lack of drama for a lack of chemistry. This epiphany is painful, but it is essential. You have to stop calling it passion and start calling it dysregulation. You have to admit that the magnetic attraction you feel is not destiny. It is a glitch in your survival software. You are trying to find water in a stone because you were taught that stones are the only place water originates. The narcissist is not your soulmate. They are a mirror reflecting your unhealed scars. They fit perfectly into the hollow spaces left by your childhood. But they do not fill those spaces. They expand them. The moment you accept that this familiarity is actually a warning signal, you begin to dissolve the spell. You start to see that the anxiety you feel is your body urging you to leave, not begging you to stay. You realize that you have been surviving on hope, the hope that you can rewrite the past by suffering in the present. If you've ever felt your body grasp onto someone who is damaging you, acknowledge that feeling. It's the moment your nervous system stops mistaking terror for love. In the following section, you'll discover what occurs when your nervous system stops confusing fear for love and how that instant initiates the transformation that terminates their power. Awakening begins the moment your survival reflex stops shielding the narcissist and begins shielding you. And that shift reconfigures the entire dynamic. There is a common assumption that the objective of the narcissist is to annihilate you. And while it is true that they exhaust you, the reality is that the narcissist depends on your survival. They do not want to break you so thoroughly that you cannot function, because then you would be useless to them. They want you to remain in a state of suspended animation, functioning sufficiently to serve them but too depleted to leave them. The narcissist makes a critical miscalculation. They underestimate the very stamina they exploited. They assume that because you have accepted the mistreatment for years, you will accept it forever. They do not realize that for the category of person who outlasts a narcissist, there is a firm psychological threshold. There is an instant where the survival mechanism shifts focus. This is the moment of transformation. Sometimes it happens in the smallest instance. You're driving home after another conflict and suddenly feel a profound silent fatigue, the kind that settles in your bones. No tears, no panic, just a calm reality rising within you. I cannot continue. This transformation rarely feels cinematic. It feels undeniable. This awakening rarely occurs during the high tension of a confrontation. It usually occurs in total silence. It occurs when you are commuting from work and you feel a wave of fatigue so profound it feels like it is in your marrow. It occurs when you observe them sleeping and instead of feeling affection or agitation, you feel nothing. You look at the individual who has governed your emotions for years and suddenly they appear small. They appear ordinary. Carl Jung described the process of individuation as the journey of becoming who you truly are. He believed that this often necessitates a disintegration of the false persona. The bond with the narcissist necessitates this disintegration. You have tried every approach. You have tried to be the flawless partner. You have tried to be the healer. You have tried to be the guardian, and you have realized that none of it functioned. You reach a point of ego death. The part of you that required their validation to exist simply expires. You realize that no matter what you do, they will never truly perceive you. You realize that their vows of improvement are just words used to negotiate more time. And in this realization, the dread of losing them vanishes. You are replaced by a profound understanding. I am losing myself, and that is the only loss I cannot tolerate. The shift manifests in moments like this. It's a Friday night. They initiate a conflict just like they have 100 times before. They accuse you of being self-centered because you wish to visit your family. In the past, you would have participated. You would have wept. You would have defended yourself. You would have scrapped your plans to demonstrate your loyalty. But this time, something is different. You hear their words, but they don't hit home. You see their hostility. You don't feel intimidated. You see the manipulation tactic. They are trying to make you feel remorseful, so you stay home and attend to them. You see the mechanics of it like observing the gears of a clock. And because you see it, you don't react to it. You simply remark, I understand you feel that way. And you continue preparing your bag. This is the moment you transition from being the target to being the observer. The narcissist depends on your emotional response to nourish their sense of authority. When you stop responding, when you stop trying to justify yourself, you are signaling that you have detached from their reality. You have exited the game. This awakening is often accompanied by a deep flatness or detachment. Do not be intimidated by this. Jung taught that depression is often a necessary descent into the unconscious. It is your psyche compelling you to halt. Your fatigue is telling you that the old way of existing is no longer sustainable. It is compelling you to withdraw your vitality from the external world, from the narcissist, and bring it back to yourself. You are not detached because you are broken. You are detached because you are exhausted from upholding a fiction. You are exhausted from trying to make a dysfunctional person whole. You are exhausted from betraying your own instincts day after day. When you finally admit to yourself, I cannot live like this anymore, you are not admitting defeat. You are declaring autonomy. You are stating that the price of the bond has surpassed the value. You are realizing that you are alone in the bond, and you have always been alone. But instead of this terrifying you, it sets you free. If you are already alone, then you have nothing to sacrifice by departing. The survivor outlasts them because they eventually realize that the bond is not a safety net, it is an anchor, and the stamina that kept you clutching that anchor for so long is the same power you will use to sever the cord. Your shift destabilizes the narcissist because it eliminates the one thing their entire reality depends on: your emotional engagement. When you transition from being a participant in the drama to an observer of the mechanics, you disrupt the fundamental operation of the bond. Their breakdown begins with one reality: it was never your love they required, it was your vitality. They do not require your love in the way healthy individuals do. They require your energy. This energy, often called narcissistic supply, is any form of attention that validates their existence and stabilizes their fragile self-worth. This supply arrives in two forms, and they are equally precious to the narcissist. Positive supply is your admiration, your compliments, and your warmth. Negative supply is your hostility, your tears, and your frustration. If they can make you smile, they feel influential. But if they can make you shout, weep, or lose sleep, they feel even more influential. Your intense emotional response proves to them that they exist, that they matter, and that they govern your internal state. But when you awaken, you stop responding. You enter a state of neutrality. You stop justifying yourself because you realize they are committed to misinterpreting you. You stop defending yourself because you know the claims are inventions. You stop fighting for the bond because you realize there is no bond to fight for. You simply exist in the space neutral and undisturbed. This neutrality is catastrophic to the narcissist. It disrupts their ability to manage their own internal tension. Carl Jung described the concept of psychic energy as a vital force that moves between people. When you withdraw your attention, you are physically withdrawing your psychic vitality from their system. They feel this loss intensely. Why? They feel the void where your devotion used to reside. When the narcissist detects this shift, and they will detect it instantly, they will panic because they cannot manage themselves. They will cycle through a predictable series of maneuvers to try and compel a reaction out of you. You need to memorize these maneuvers so you can observe them happen without joining in. First, they will typically try to restart the cycle with charm. This is known as hoovering. They will suddenly become the individual you fell for years ago. They will be kind, attentive, and magnetic. They might purchase gifts, propose a trip, or apologize for things they did months ago. They are trying to induce amnesia in you. They want you to ignore the mistreatment and focus on the fantasy. But because you have awakened, you will see this kindness for what it is: a transaction. It is a bribe intended to buy your compliance. If the charm does not work, they will switch immediately to guilt. They will play the victim. They will say you have changed, that you are cold, or that you are deserting them when they need you most. They might pretend an illness or a crisis to trigger your protective reflex. They are trying to weaponize your empathy against you, but the observer in you will see that their suffering is a performance. If guilt fails, they will resort to hostility. This is an intimidation maneuver. They will attack your character, your looks, or your skills. They want to incite a fight because a fight means you are still connected. But you will not fight. You will remain steady. You will give them brief, factual responses. This non-reaction shatters their illusion of authority. When these direct maneuvers fail, the narcissist does not simply surrender. This is where the conflict transitions from a private struggle to a public one. When they realize they can no longer govern you directly, they attempt to govern how others view you. This leads to the more dangerous phase of indirect conflict. The first tool of indirect conflict is triangulation. This occurs when the narcissist introduces a third person into the dynamic to create jealousy or doubt in you. This could be a new interest and former partner, or even a friend or relative. They will start discussing how this other person truly understands them in a way you do not. They might compare you negatively to them. They might casually remark that a peer finds them appealing, or they might spend hours messaging someone else while sitting right next to you. The objective is not necessarily to stray, although they might. The primary objective is to make you compete for their attention. They want you to feel insecure. They want you to work harder to reclaim your position as the favorite. Jung spoke of the shadow projecting itself onto others. In this case, the narcissist projects their own dread of inadequacy onto you. They feel hollow. So they try to make you feel hollow by proving that they can replace you. But when you are awake, you do not compete.